Today, for Ask a Counselor, I am joined by one of the amazing counselors from our DFCN team, Bri. It is so good to have you.
Thanks, Deborah. Happy to be here.
I have so enjoyed getting to work with you, Bri. You've been a part of the network now, like from the beginning,
Yeah, yeah. Time flies.
which is amazing. And then I'm pretty sure you and I connected on Instagram. Is that accurate?
It is, yeah.
Tell
Definitely.
me about how we first connected, if you even remember.
Oh my gosh, yeah, it is. It is hard to remember. Everything's been a blur in a good way since then, but probably Instagram and then probably some um like reading of your books and then it just kind of got connected again someone that's like, oh wow, they value the psychology and the research and integration of faith, and as you know, a little bit harder to come by. So I really resonated with the material and here we are.
Exactly. I don't think people realize, not every Christian counselor is the same.
Mm,
And I think what I love about the network, and particularly the type of people who are drawn in, people like you who value integration in a balanced way, because I think sometimes people can lean way too clinical,
right.
and other times people can lean way too biblical. And what I mean by that is, the assumption that all you need is to read the Bible. Everything you
Right.
need is in God's word.
Right.
And we know that that's not accurate because we don't apply that to other
Correct.
disciplines.
Correct.
If my husband went into eye surgery and said, "Trust me, everything I need is in God's word," I would panic,
Right.
but people don't
Exactly.
have that same approach to mental health. And so I value our team so much because the counselors that have been drawn in are
Mm,
usually counselors like you who've read the books and listened to the podcast and are
mm,
in alignment with the way that we integrate faith
mm.
that's also clinically informed.
Right.
So I just knew from the beginning that you would be a great fit,
Mm.
and you have proven to be so.
Thank you.
Tell us a little bit about what you do for the network and what
Sure.
some of your favorite types of people to work with are.
Sure. Yeah. So, um, some things I've done, I really enjoy doing, in addition to seeing clients. We've done some reset seminars together, so kind of online workshops. I love the teaching side of things. I've written a few blogs and articles that you've allowed me to do, so I really appreciate that side, just kind of educating and teaching. That's something that really resonates with me. I also love running groups. Ran a great singles group before, and so any way that we can kind of get clients that maybe we don't always get to see on a one-on-one basis. And in terms of clients I love to see, I love folks that are really wanting to develop that insight, really wanting to go deeper. I think that probably most of my clients could attest to that. We're going to be talking about your upbringing, we're going to be talking about your family. And I also really enjoy, as you were kind of alluding to, people that really want to develop an emotionally healthy sense of their spirituality, that,
Yeah,
to be healthy spiritually is to be healthy emotionally and vice versa. And folks that fall into that category as well.
that's amazing. So if I'm listening, like what are some areas things I might be struggling with that
Mm.
you would be a good fit?
Sure. I find that I work a lot with the helpers, I would say. So these could be people that fall into what we would consider the helping professionals. So that could be, mental health professionals, doctors, nurses, people in healthcare, teachers, things like that. We tend to see a lot of people who would consider themselves high achievers, perfectionists, people pleasers, people that struggle with burnout. That tends to kind of gravitate, and maybe there's a correlation between people who go in those types of fields. So I really like exploring that to get to the why of the behaviors that, hey, a lot of times society or church kind of applauds, right? They're not saying, hey, don't be as successful or don't achieve as much, but I think it comes at a cost. And so I like kind of unearthing that for folks, as well as just to look at, again, their past and their upbringing and how that influenced them today.
Yeah. And you also are drawn to working with and have a heart for singles and those who
Oh,
are
yeah,
dating.
100%.
Tell me a little bit about why that's important to you.
Sure. Yeah. Oh man. Well, I mentioned, that I got to do the singles group, and so I think that's something, having kind of created that curriculum, you just realize so much how this is not just one area of our life, but it's really reflective of our emotional health with ourselves, with other people, with how we see God. Like it's more than just, I think people can see it like a surface level, like, oh, it's dating. But
Right.
man, it has such deep roots. Again, something I can personally resonate with, and so I think that helps in terms of helping folks feel, hey, you're not alone, this is a relatable experience. But man, there's a lot that we gotta unearth and kind of unlearn and relearn about, just again, so much trauma or wounding that we project onto kind of the dating world. So it goes beyond just skills and strategies and where to meet people. We're doing kind of deep heart work there. So I
Yeah.
love working with people on that side of things.
And that's why I thought you would be great for the question that came in
Sure.
the hotline from Stephanie from Guatemala. First of all, how cool is it
Yeah.
that we have such an international reach?
Amazing.
We get clients from all over the world, which is such a privilege because there's not always good care and support and advice and encouragement in other countries.
Yeah.
So to be able to offer that to people from all over the world is incredible. The fact that this podcast goes out to so many different countries, the are being translated in so many different languages,
Mm.
is just so encouraging.
Yeah.
So Stephanie from Guatemala says, how do I date well and maintain physical boundaries in dating? My boyfriend is not a virgin, and we both want to save ourselves for marriage, but it has become difficult, even though we've talked about those boundaries. But the temptations are strong. And even though we haven't had sex, we have done things that do not honor God. And it's difficult to not fall into those gray areas. We really want to honor God, but I feel that my boyfriend's sexual past makes it difficult to lead in purity. He's been working toward healing even before meeting me. What's your advice for this kind of situation? I'm really glad she asked this question because I know that she's definitely not the only one struggling
Not
with
at
this.
all.
This isn't just a certain culture. Like, this just shows you that this is a universal struggle, a universal question, and something that we just have to figure out in these stages of dating and
Right.
engagement before marriage. We've heard so many things about the topic of sex before marriage, some that have been harmful and damaging. And I think our tendency in some cases is just to throw it all out because we don't want to be legalistic,
Oh.
but then we end up falling into a different trap. And so I
Mhm.
just want to help Stephanie and anyone who feels like they're in this stage of like, how do I honor God when the temptation towards physical attraction, sexual attraction, um, is so strong? What do I do? So
Yeah.
where would you start with someone like Stephanie?
Yeah. I think kind of like what you were starting to say there is to normalize this experience for so many. She's not alone. This is not like oh wow, no one else struggles in that area. And when I see struggles in the area, I don't just mean in terms of, oh wow, this is like a difficult because the temptations are there, but I even think our mindset surrounding the struggle, as you're kind of alluding to, can gravitate towards one extreme. Maybe people grew up, again, legalistic culture or highly religious environments or things. Some people say purity culture, whatever that may be. And then maybe have the pendulum swing kind of to the other side, and maybe less boundaries and things like that. So one, just want to normalize and have kind of a word of caution here. Be careful to not let shame creep in if it's not already there, because if we have a shame-based mindset surrounding, okay, this is wrong, and oh man, and then if we do this or that, then God is just, it becomes, I think, a very extreme kind of mentality. Then you have shame. And I actually was thinking of the verse, I want to say it's in Romans, where it talks about the kindness of God leads us to repentance. And so I think if we can start to emulate that, have more of a compassion and a curiosity towards ourselves rather than a shame, run and hide, kind of like an Adam and Eve type of
Right.
example there of saying this wrong, because then shame does not lead to behavior change. So I
Yeah,
just want to emphasize that
I
first and
agree.
foremost.
Let's camp out there for a minute because I think this is really important. I always talk to the clients and people in general about this concept of, first of all, what is shame? Shame is when we are putting ourselves down
Mm,
rather than calling ourselves higher. And
mhm.
there's a big difference between,
Yeah.
oh, you're so bad. What is wrong with
Right.
you? This is filthy. This is so wrong. You are so separating yourself from God. How can you
Mhm,
call yourself a Christian? It's this feeling of shame, and it puts you down and questions your relationship with God and
mhm.
others rather than conviction,
Right.
which calls you higher.
Mhm,
And there's a very different voice to
mhm,
that. I mean, even think of parenting, like with
mhm,
children, like one version just puts them down and puts them down and tells them how terrible they are. The other version is like, I know who you are.
mhm.
And I've called you to better things, to healthier things, to things that are for your good because I believe in you. And that is such a different
Right.
approach. And too
Yeah.
many people, because of what they've been taught,
Mhm,
about sex before marriage and
mhm,
how bad it is, how
mhm,
dangerous it is, how wrong it is, how filthy it is. They
mhm,
do come with a lot of shame. And I just even remember feeling stuck in my own struggles before marriage and
mhm.
feeling the heaviness of shame
Right.
until I had an accountability lunch with my mentor. And she looked at me and said, I want you to thank God for those desires.
Right.
And I'm like, what? Like, thank
Right.
God for those desires? Because gratitude moves us toward God,
Mhm.
shame moves us away.
Yeah.
And the desires, in and of themselves, are good,
Correct.
they're healthy,
Correct.
right? So this is really important for people
Yeah.
to grasp. Like, I want to be in right relationship with God and self in
Mhm.
order to even begin climbing out of this pit,
Right. Right.
because shame will keep me in it again and again and again.
Right.
So
Yeah.
there's some deep work to do, even in just unpacking what we
Yeah.
believe about ourselves as we're in the midst of sin and struggle.
Yeah, yeah, it does. Great example with kind of parenting in that way. If it just feels like this constant kind of punishing dynamic, run and hide, and I'm afraid, and I've got to get my act together before, kind of approaching the throne, so to speak, again. That then, and I think that even can get into some stuff about, well, man, how do you view God and what's your kind of understanding of Him? This just has, again, so many layers. Well,
I
time to
know.
unpack all of it, but it really does. So then I think that can even affect kind of your spiritual health as well. And not, again, just in that way of saying, okay, very simplified, well, sin is bad and what it does, but just in the sense of how you perceive it, from, again, just a place of shame in your relationship. And if there's shame in your relationship, I heard at the beginning, the question says, we talked about our boundaries. Okay, well, that's great. But are you talking about what's happening inside of both of you in the relationship, how you're viewing it? Again, do you feel shameful? Do you feel embarrassed? Do you feel, how are you making sense of this, if and when and how these boundaries are crossed? Not just, okay, do this, we feel shameful, start over, and then the cycle just perpetuates itself.
Yeah. So step one is stepping back and really taking inventory of your beliefs
Hmm.
and your why. Why do I really want to do this? Is it just because I feel horrible and I feel like this is wrong and God says no, but my body says yes and I'm fighting against this?
Right.
Let's really come to terms with our deep-seated beliefs, because in order for you to be able to overcome this, you've got to land at a place where you actually believe that it is in your best interest
Mm.
to obey, and that God is for you, and that He's not withholding this amazing thing from you but that he sincerely has your best interest in mind, and he loves you, and he wants you to succeed, and he wants you to have the most fulfilling relationship that you possibly can have with no baggage.
Mhm.
And so what's my why, what's my belief about
Yeah.
God, and really coming to terms with some of those things underneath the surface. Why am I even drawn to this? Is there something that it's covering up? Am I stressed? Is this the only way I feel connected to somebody? And maybe there's not a healthy emotional, spiritual connection in this relationship. And so the physical connection is giving me something. There's a lot of reasons that might
Mhm.
be underneath that question of why.
Yeah.
And if that's difficult for you, this is where working with someone who is trained can be so helpful to help you kind
Mhm.
of unpack some of this stuff. So getting to the root of our why. And then once we've done that, like what's another practical thing? What would step 2 be?
Mm. Yeah, I love that you mentioned getting to your why, understanding, self, because self-awareness, oh man, if that can precede again the behavioral change and the practical steps, that I think will be what makes um the next steps more really long standing, and really not just a short term, because hey, there are strategies, resources online, some probably better than others, but you could find that. But if you don't do that heart work, that inner work, to your point, understanding your why, understanding maybe some traumas and things. There's a big connection between how we show up in our sexual selves and our histories, our traumas, our childhood, things like that. So
Right.
really want to emphasize that, um,
Right.
before, because I think sometimes people do, as we see in so many different areas, not just this area, where people want to start with okay, well, here are some boundaries and here's what we do, and we start
Right.
externally, and it says,
Right.
okay, well,
We
maybe
want
that
to
gets
jump to
you.
the how
Yeah,
before we have unpacked the why. So maybe to
yeah,
conceptualize this, we'll say the first step is the why.
sure.
The second step is the what. What do I
Right.
actually believe about this?
Yeah.
And then maybe the third step is a how. So let's zoom in on the what for a little bit. What do I actually believe about
Mhm.
sex? What do I
Mhm.
actually believe about sex before marriage? What do I
Mhm.
actually believe about this type of connection? Because I think our underlying beliefs matter with
Sure.
regards to what we end up doing. If
Mhm.
you actually believe that it's for your good to wait, to
Mhm.
have boundaries, like it's not just because daddy said so.
Right, right.
It's because there are significant reasons and ramifications. We know that sex is binding. We know
Mhm.
that sex is powerful.
Mhm.
I mean, it releases oxytocin, even just physical intimacy without penetration begins to
Mhm.
release these chemicals in your body that truly make you feel connected to someone, just like a
Correct.
mother feels connected to her child that she's nursing. I mean, there's a physiological thing that happens, so it's powerful. And I also think the double-edged sword is that sex is healing. And what I mean by that is it covers up relationship flaws,
Correct.
but in some ways it's meant to do that. I mean, I think of my relationship with my husband and how sometimes sex can be the balm to the things that we're walking through and working through.
Mhm.
But if you're not careful, in outside of marriage, it can be the thing that covers up the cracks that were meant to be exposed so that you know they're there and that you
Mhm.
can deal with them before they turn into a serious issue. And if you're
Mhm.
constantly covering up the cracks, you don't even know how significant they are. So
Right.
sex is binding, sex is powerful, sex covers up relationship flaws. Like,
Mhm.
and Bri, you would agree with me. This isn't
Mhm.
just, we're not just talking about penetration, right? Like
Right. Right.
sex is a spectrum
Sure.
of all of these different experiences. And she's like, yeah, we haven't like had official sex,
Right.
but we're
Right. Right.
struggling with all of these things.
Right.
So let's talk a little bit about like what do we believe about why this matters.
Yeah.
How do we help
Yeah.
people conceptualize why this
Yeah,
matters?
yeah. Well, I'm so glad that you mentioned just what you did earlier, because some people, whether they have different interpretations or that at a different place spiritually or what have you, it's not my place to say one way or another. But we could say just from what we know, even research based, about what that kind of physical intimacy and what sex does to the brain and connections and everything you just said. I don't want to just repeat it, but essentially. Um, Now we have to think when that happens, yes, again, both, kind of the good and the bad, because of course, we have that side of saying, well, now I'm seeing my relationship through this lens that has
Hmm.
been altered. It just has. And so sometimes we can, and I don't want to paint with a broad brush, but sometimes we can now say, oh, there's a closeness, there's a trust, there's a mutual respect, there's a safety there, right? All these things that can kind of come, because of that physical intimacy has already happened. But what I see all the time with clients and just, over the years, um, what's that say phrase, putting the cart before the horse. Sometimes we make inferences and say, well, because this happened, I must XYZ have this trust and this person has this character and has all this sort of stuff. And I know that sometimes, of course, that ends up being the case, but sometimes it doesn't, because of it creates this sense of illusion. And again, sometimes it might turn out to be true, but there are other times where it says, oh, now my relationship with this person feels different. Maybe a lot of times people will say just feels more intense, or it feels more, right? Like it kind of expedites it. It's pressing that fast
Right.
forward button on something where maybe other kind of pacing would have helped you make a more informed decision in that way. And just like you said, hey, I think even within the context of marriage, because not to create this, very clear cut kind of thing, that if people are using sex as a way to avoid deeper issues, that even in
Right.
that context is going to be problematic. We're not just picking on one
Absolutely.
group here by any means.
Absolutely.
It's
It
the
can
greater purpose of it.
definitely become problematic. And I have even seen it become problematic in marriage where
Yeah.
there's these huge cracks, these
Hmm.
huge issues. It's like, oh, let's just solve it with forget emotional connection. Let's just solve it with sex.
Yeah.
And then it creates bigger issues. So we never want sex to be the one and only source of healing, and because
Correct.
it doesn't have that kind of power.
Yeah.
And the other thing is, I'll add this: I do feel as though our discipline and self control outside of marriage paves the way for our discipline and self control once we are in the
Right.
covenant of marriage. It's not
Right.
like, oh, now all of a sudden there's no temptations.
Hmm.
There's no, like, it continues in
Correct.
different ways.
Right.
And so you're strengthening something inside of you. And so just to remember, like, the what. Let's go into the
Yeah.
how while we still
Yeah.
have some time. Like, now
Sure.
what? How do we do things practically here? I
Yeah.
like that they've started having conversations about this
Right.
because I do think it's really important.
Hmm.
Uh, some of the language of, like, he's supposed to lead in purity or I'm supposed to lead in purity, like, I don't necessarily think that leading
Hmm.
in purity is one person's job
Sure.
in a
Yeah.
relationship. I think it's both people's jobs because it's their life. Like, I
Hmm.
have to be the one to guard my heart. The Bible says,
Hmm.
guard your heart,
Hmm.
for it is the wellspring of life. It doesn't necessarily say guard the heart of you and your
Right.
boyfriend or girlfriend.
Right.
Not that I'm saying that that shouldn't be, but what I am
Hmm.
saying is the primary thing I am to guard is my heart. So
Right.
I have to be the leader. Whether or not somebody is leading by my side
Hmm.
determines whether or not I want to keep them by my side for the
Hmm.
long haul.
Right.
Because if someone's not leading in the ways that you need them to be leading, and you feel like you're the only one that's leading in this specific way, maybe that's indicative of
Yeah.
something that you should assess. Like, oh, if she is not leading in this way, or he is not leading in this way, then are they going to be able to lead in the ways that I need them to lead
Yeah.
forevermore in marriage?
Yeah. Yeah. I think you're kind of alluding to it there, that self leadership that, you might call it areas of discipline, personal accountability, personal, self-reflection there. But yeah, it's I don't believe it as well that the kind of the onus of responsibility is on someone else. Because then again, there's almost a shame narrative coming in again of saying, because
Right.
the caller had also indicated, okay, well, the partner there has a sexual past, and kind of working on his healing. Well, listen, regardless of sexual past, I'm not saying that that's irrelevant here, but from a place of saying, okay, well, that must mean it's going to be more difficult, or he has to lead the way because of this, right? It's not like paying a penance, so to speak. There has to be a level of saying, okay, this is also an individual matter, and it can't just be one or two conversations at the beginning of a dating relationship that says, hey, how do you feel about this
Right.
kind of, you're checking the moral boxes here of
Right. Right.
saying, this, because that doesn't mean, as we see with Jesus, of course, right, that he was constantly going after the heart. Just because
Right.
there are people that abstain physically, well, hey, we don't know what's going on internally either, so be careful to not, I think, idolize that a little bit, in a way that says this must mean, wow, you're so close to God and walking with the Holy Spirit. It can, I think, be a bit of a slippery slope when we look at the behavior, the outward behavior, as evidence of that, because again, Jesus would say, hey, I see the outward behavior, you have your reward, right? And so I think that she had mentioned, in this case, the partner doing some healing. I would recommend that, for both individuals, again, to kind of see, like you're alluding to, is this just, do you just consider physical connection? Is it purely that side? I think more often than not, it's not. I think it's, there are also underlying things of saying, again, hey, how has my past influenced this? If it's causing me this much distress, if it's, do I have I identified my why, or is this just kind of my parents' voice that I've inherited that says this is wrong, don't do this, and XYZ. So I think that that would do wonders for them to do some individual work, and then they can see, I think, a bit more clearly about
Yeah.
practical next steps as well.
And I think what you said, it's not just one conversation.
Hmm.
This is many conversations, and and ultimately, are we on the same page? Do we want the
Hmm.
same things? Are we headed in the same direction? For those who are interested in the real practicals, I have a whole podcast, one of the most popular episodes, called How Far is Too Far when it comes to sex drive and sexual interaction. And it's like, you know, controlling your sex drive before it controls you. And we really go into detail about the different stages of physical, and where along the line, where should your boundaries be, the green zone, the yellow zone, the red zone. So we'll make sure to link to that in the notes, so that those of you who are like, okay, this is a great conversation, this is a really good thing to start thinking about, and then it'll lead you into some practical, some next steps to know what that actually looks like. But remember, you're both responsible for leading the relationship in the direction that you want it to go. And if you find yourself leading it one way and the person you're with is leading it in another way, number one, ask yourself why you're drawn to that person. Number two, ask yourself, are you going in the same direction? And number three, if not, then what do I do about it? Because this isn't just physical things. If you dig underneath the surface, you want to make sure you're aligned with these type of things, as well as all the other things underneath the surface, your why, your what. Otherwise, your how isn't going to be in alignment either.
Mm-mm.
So, just some things to think about for those of you who are navigating this type of conversation with
Mhm.
a significant other, or even before you start dating, something to really think through on your own. Final thoughts, Bri.
Yeah. Just one thing I'll say, because I think sometimes this is a message that gets snuck into places where they say, okay, well, yeah, again, the leading in purity, right? And it sounds very, very intense there. And then I think people think, hey, when we get married, whew, okay, the issue is gone. We did it. We conquered it. And
Right.
that is just kind of asking for trouble with that kind of mentality. You don't get to have such a shame-based, fear-based experience for, X amount of years. And then all of a sudden you're married and says, well, that goes away. Or like you're alluding to as well, if there were issues of emotional unhealth or discipline or accountability or congruence with personal values, Well, that's only going to get magnified in
Right.
marriage.
Right.
You're getting a little glimpse of it there. So take advantage of that glimpse and allow yourself to pivot and be empowered to make change as needed.
Exactly. Like this is the opportunity to heal what you can or acknowledge what can't be healed and then make steps to say goodbye, to realize this isn't a good match. We're not aligned.
Mhm.
So God reveals what he wants to heal. And it's a great opportunity. It's a great invitation to stop and heal what you can. So thank you so much, Bri. If you guys are interested in doing the work, going a little bit deeper in this topic, I'm going to link to the podcast that I mentioned about physical boundaries. But I also want to encourage you to connect with Bri, deborahfaleta.com/counseling. You can find her schedule, you can find her bio, you can book a session with her, work one-on-one to get healthy and whole, standing alone no matter what season you're in. Thanks for joining us, Bri.
Thanks so much.